Hello, it's Nikki and welcome to day 5. Today is all about the tweaks. And this is a really interesting conversation, I find, because I hear these phrases a lot. And it's really important to almost take them into a 90s game show of true or false, play or pass. And what I mean is sometimes we hear these phrases that come out of people's mouths and maybe we don't really know where they came from. Or sometimes you might say something and you'd be like, oh my goodness, I sound like a parent here. Oh, my next door neighbor used to say that. Why am I saying it? So things like, oh, I will when I win the lottery, or when I feel less tired, or when I have the money, or when I've got the headspace. And this is a really interesting conversation to have with yourself and with other people. And because I'm in a long-term relationship and we know each other very well, we call each other out on these things sometimes, and not in a I'll coach you and you coach me, but I will sometimes say, tell me more about that. Or Matt will say it like, so when do you think that might be then? And we encourage the next layer of conversation, the next layer of questioning. And I think this is really important in terms of your plan of not just saying these sweeping statements of I'll do it when I win the lottery, or I'll do it when my business makes more money, but to invite yourself to really look at the specifics. And being a business owner, I guess, is really important. So in 2013, when I had qualified, I had a job that was quite demanding. I was working as an agent, so there were a lot of last minute moments, or sometimes actors who needed their flight details at 10 o'clock at night, or, you'd be awake and checking the mobile at 6:30 in the morning because you wanted to make sure that their car had picked them up. So you were always slightly preoccupied with looking after lots of different people. And in that time, I didn't have children. So, I did have my mornings, and the only responsibility was basically for me to get myself ready. And I would have all the evenings and weekends, and I didn't really have any responsibilities. But I was quite time poor at the time, as in I was being paid by somebody else. So I needed to make sure that I was fulfilling those commitments. So what I did was, when I was planning this next phase, I was really looking at, what time do I have available? And one of the things that I was doing a lot at the time was I was doing a 3-day commute. And this 3-day commute was about an hour and a half each way in a car. And because I was going on the North Circular and the M25, potentially it could have taken a lot longer, and often it did. So I knew ultimately that I had that time, and I had that time available, and I didn't just want to listen to, the radio and know I'm just really showing my age here, and really familiarize myself with the cool kids and the top 20. No, I wanted to use that time. So I listened to so many books at that time. I listened to so many podcasts, and I really had that reflection time. And I used to be thinking about how I could do things. So this was really sort of my inspiration and reflection time, but also it was my problem solving. And I used to encourage myself to make decisions. So I was like, right, okay, by the time I get home tonight, I want to know if I'm going to take option A or option B. And I would give myself that hour and a half to go round and round in circles of like, what is it, Nikki? Is it this or is it that? Or, I can't make a decision about it. But what I did was I moved myself into decision by the end of that journey. Because another thing that can happen, especially if you are prone to saying, I will when, or somehow maybe in the future, in the summer, after Corona we all say these things, don't we? Because actually actually, sometimes we physically just don't have the headspace for it. So we do have to shelve things. And I've spoken about this before. There are so many things that you can do all at once. And I don't care how productive you are. I don't care how people will say, well, what would Beyonce do? Sometimes something else just needs your attention. So please don't layer any kind of shame or guilt on yourself. You will do it in time. But what I'm simply asking you to do is to invite yourself to say, is this true or is this false? Or is there something else going on? Another thing that I would love you to look at is look at how much time you have available at the moment. And it may be like in, for example, 2015, in those sort of first 6 months after having my son, I would only have very sporadic nap times. And certainly in that first 6 months after having him, I didn't really take on any one-on-one clients because I just didn't, A, have the mental capacity, but B, I wasn't able to predict my schedule in that way. So I wasn't able to say, right, well, I could put him down for a sleep at this time, and I know that I'm definitely going to get an hour there. Our sleep patterns were all over the shop, so I didn't feel that I could do that. But what I did know in those sleep times, that by the time he did get to sleep, quite often he would be there a little while, thank goodness, because we all needed it. And so what I could do was I could build courses. What I could do in that time was to create content or schedule things so consistent stuff went out later down the line. So I wanted to talk about that and ask you the same, like, what do you have available right now? And what do you have available perhaps for this next quarter, this next month, this next half term, this next year, however you want to look at it. And I want you to become really familiar with what is your calendar looking like? Because I know that I can fall into this, that I write down all of these things that I want to achieve in a week, and then I only get a third of the way down my list and I feel like I failed in some way. But what I actually did was I set the expectations too high. I thought that I was some kind of crazy woman who never needed to sleep, or that I wouldn't be interrupted, or that I would have this, I don't know, Duracell bunny version of myself that'd be like, no, I'll just keep going and not have lunch. You have to be realistic with what time that you have and how you want to spend that time. And hopefully by doing this exercise, you'll really notice your patterns of your own behavior. For example, you might go, oh, I actually don't like working in 25-minute chunks because it takes me 23 minutes to get into something. And I've really realized this, that when I'm working, I love to be able to have a whole morning. So start at 9 and obviously lay out some snacks and cup of teas and toilet breaks and all the rest of it. But if I can have a good run at something until 12:30, that is such a great productive time for me. And this sense of, if I'm planning or if I'm doing some strategy work or things like that, that's why my strategy days work with my clients so well, because we have that day together. We both block out this time in our diaries to solely focus on what we're focusing on. So I want you to pay attention to your time, to your moves, to your behaviors over the next few days, and really think about how you can plan your time. And maybe what you need to do is carve out some time in your diary to have some reflection time, to give this some research time, or however you want to name it, but really make it a priority. Because I'm going to end with this very sort of serious point, that if you don't make it a priority, nobody else will. And nobody else will ever have that moment where it's like, do you know what? You should go and do this, this, and this for yourself. And we really have to ask, I know I'm terrible at asking for help, and I really have to do that if it's going to happen in the way that I want it to. So Thank you so much for listening. As always, day 5, here we go. I'll be back tomorrow. There's all the details down below. So if you've missed any episodes, you can go back and you can join your personal brand plan. If you want to book a strategy call with me, I would love to hear from you. Maybe now is your time. Maybe your time is that moment where you're like, yeah, I've been kind of doing this for a while and I've been dipping in and out and I really need a bit of a plan of action. Because I tell you what, there's nothing worse than feeling like you're just working hard and you're not getting the results that you want. So get in touch if that appeals, and I will see you tomorrow. Lots of love. Bye.